Welcome to Sleepover with Yuri Season 3. If you've ever been categorized as a minority, whether for being an immigrant or LGBTQ or a person of color, well, guess what? You are in a majority on my show, as Sleepover with Yuri is a show that celebrates diversity, promotes equality, raises awareness, and spreads love. In Season 2, I talked a lot about mental health and our spiritual body. Most religions and beliefs recognize two bodies, physical and spiritual, also known as soul. We are very well aware of our physical body, but not so much of our spiritual body, and there is still a lot of stigma in talking about one's soul. Spirituality involves the recognition of a feeling or sense or belief that there is something greater than myself, something more to being human. In Season 3, I will be talking with my guests about their spiritual experiences, as I believe that spiritual awakening may be a solution to our emotional problems and a key to happiness. My guest tonight is one of the most spiritual people I've ever met, as he has done so many different spiritual programs, retreats. He just came back from Sedona in Arizona, and tonight he will shed a light on his spiritual awakening and the form of spiritual awakening he experienced. Please help me welcome back Brenton. Hey, welcome back, Brenton.
Thanks, Yuri. It's good to be here.
I know, good to have you. You were here during Season 1. We were in a different studio, it was a different crew. It's been years ago. Wow. So thank you for coming back. Welcome. Good to have you back.
Feels like a different world ago.
It was a different world ago. It was before pandemic, and yeah, wow. Well, Brenton, this season, I decided to talk about spiritual awakening because I talked a lot about, issues with minorities and mental health issues, etc. Raising awareness and talking about intolerance and unacceptance in our society. So this season, I'm talking about spiritual awakening, as I believe, like I said, that it could be a solution to our emotional problems, could be a key to our happiness. And I've known you for quite some time, and every time we talk, you always come back from a different spiritual retreat. It feels like you always do some spiritual programs, watch some spiritual videos. So I thought that you would be a perfect guest for me to have a sleepover with and talk about spiritual awakening in your perception, how it happened for you and what it's like for you. And I think you would be a wonderful addition to this season. Was there a moment in life for you, the time specific, when you felt like, wow, that was a spiritual awakening, now I get it, like as an aha moment, as an experience of this is a spiritual awakening? What would the biggest experience for you would be?
Well, I would have to say the last 9 months.
The last 9 months?
Dealing with severe health issues and issues with my sight that I would have never imagined that I'd have to go through, that I would go through. And coming out of that, that was the big moment. Actually, in beginning of June, where I was just at my wit's end with healing myself and still feeling ill, and being like, and at one point during this 9-month process, I realized that, I was juicing and fasting and Irish sea mossing, and for 6-7 months, the crazy amount of stuff I was doing. And at one point it was like, it's your thinking, it's your thinking that's causing this. So I started to realize, then in early June, I had another round of this, and or the end of May, beginning of June, and I was just like at my wit's end, and I was beyond tears, I was beyond victim, poor me. I was just like, oh my God, what? And then I had a feeling come over me, and I heard like it was more of my own thought, but it was like, how do you expect to have robust health when you're committed to being a sick victim? And I was like, whoa, that really resonated with me, because I know I'd been playing with that, for my whole life. That paradigm, I could, and we all are kind of, in some ways, we all have that victim hero or whatever inside of ourselves, and that duality, again, another form of duality. But I really got that, and it had been unfolding for me for several years, that concept. But that was like, that was definitely aha. I mean, and that was a spiritual awakening. Because that was then when I realized that, yes, I had been committed unconsciously all these years and had all these little, rackets and little, manipulations in order to to cope with life that involved being sick and, and all this kind of thing.
Would you say that when your physical body got sick and kept getting sicker and sicker, your spiritual body sort of stood up and gave you a hint that it's in your hands? The health of your physical body is in your hands.
Well, yeah, and at one point, because it would just go, it was on and on and on and on months, and I'm like, I didn't think I'd ever get my health back, and I was like, wow, if you don't have health, I mean, you hear that all your life. Oh, health is wealth. If you don't have your health, you don't have anything. But when you're running around making your dream come true, so it was like, wow, yeah. Once I realized that, and I will tell you, the next day, it started to lift. The physical health issues started to lift.
So for you, the spiritual awakening came to you as a form of self-awareness of your thinking.
Right, and then I think, and to add to that, that's interesting, because now if you really want to know, or that you're asking, it really came through the health issue, really, and I gotta say, and it just, and even now I don't want to, humility and things, so I don't want to be like, oh yeah, now I've had my big awakening and I'm, Mr. Spiritual and I could write a book about it. No, I'm like, it just gave me a little window finally. And all the things I've done. I mean, I've 12-step programs, gurus, shaman, trainings, landmark, just the amount of things that which are great now, because I've taken little pieces of each of one of those as part of my repertoire in my armor of weapons against. I don't want not against, but just part of my armor in a way.
Yeah.
At the same time, armor can be.
So now that the spiritual awakening happened for you in a way of prompting you that it's all about your thinking. You got to think positive, optimistic, and don't let yourself be a victim. Don't let yourself get sick. So have you been practicing this knowledge up to this day, and has it shown any results?
Oh, yeah. And the results it shows is how, how much more work I need to do, how much I'm really, what would you say, enmeshed with this physical reality in a way that at this point in, I feel like this consciousness that, it's like I go back to the Christ consciousness. It was so interesting last night. I was grappling with this major issue within my being, and this video popped up all about. So it's just like these, I don't know how do I really say this without sounding like, I'm being judgmental, but just the different behaviors that don't serve us, and that I still engage with, that I'm realizing just how much that it's, crucial that I seriously look at how I'm going to deal with these, to be fully present, where I can fully heal, and because it's so easy, you start feeling better, and it just kind of all goes out the window, and you just want to go back to what you were always doing, So thankfully, I've had many months of extreme discipline in that, because when you're faced with, you're on your deathbed. I mean, I guess it wasn't like my deathbed, but if you're gonna be half your health for for God knows how, that's,
It's interesting you had to bring it up because one of my episodes of season 3, I had a guest who talked about the day when he felt suicidal and he felt like death was an option, and and that's when the spiritual awakening came to him. So for you, even though it's not something you wanted for you to be an option, but it just happened that your health was challenged, and that's when the spiritual awakening happened. So I guess when the physical body is close to the point where we may lose it,
Right.
that's when the spiritual body kind of gets out. But that's an interesting thought. But also, Brenton, my question for you is that, as you mentioned, you gave me a list of different programs, retreats, spiritual trainings that you've done, including your recent trip to Sedona, which you just came back from. Did those programs or retreats serve you any good at all? And what was their concept? What was their common concept between all of them of a spiritual awakening for us?
Well, a common concept with all of those would be, living in the now.
Okay, so being present and living in the moment. Okay.
Yeah. And I guess always in a different form, there's forgiveness. Either you make like in the 12-step, you'll make an amends. In these trainings, you would call somebody that you had cut out of your life, and you would call them to. They wouldn't call it make an amends, but it was a similar thing. Or
so forgiveness.
Another guru. She was like, forgiveness. That came later because I'd been working on forgiveness many years, and I really wasn't understanding like what is forgiveness really, and it's for you, okay, but I was still like I was playing the victim until about a month ago, after all, after everything. That's how thick. I mean different people are, can get it sooner than others, but that's how much I wanted to hang on to, fear, So I'm grateful. Also, what is common with all these different modalities too is then being able to embrace, where you were and then who you are now and talk about it. I can talk about that. And it's not like I'm free of fear now either. But like I said too, in these last 2 years now, I've just doubled, quadrupled down on my inner work and my spiritual work, and understand that it's now or never. It's now or never that you want to, have your best life yet. It's now or never. If not now, when? Is one of these other phrases that I picked up from it.
All right, so the trainings that you've done, so it would be being in the moment, being present, and forgiveness. And the personal spiritual awakening that you had was positive thinking and the power of thinking and allowing yourself to have things in life or lose things in life if we think negative.
Yeah.
Does that sound about right?
Yeah. Well, it's not so, cut and dry. Like, I just think positive now, and I'm, not at all. So, but I do have to be very aware, and then get clearer on how I'm creating my reality with those thoughts. And once you really start to get that, then it becomes quite easy to let go of, the self-pity in whatever. And start getting into forgiveness.
And the people who don't serve you or the situations that don't serve you.
It's
when you have the clarity of what the reality should be like for you. Brendan, another question I have for you. So you mentioned...
Or really what you were doing to create where you got to. That was one of the things in the trainings that I learned like 10 years ago, is like, if you want to know what you're committed to creating in your life, like as we were learning this, like how do you know, it's like, well, just look what's in your life. You've created that. So on this beginning of June, when I was just like blown away, blown open, I was just beyond, I'm like, what's happening? Am I, this is enough. I asked myself, well, what am I committed to creating? I'm creating this somehow. I am creating this illness for some reason, somehow. And I kept asking myself, and I was writing mantras for months on that. And I finally got that answer, I finally got that answer. And, and then that's when everything shifted. and you know what you had been doing created, grave illness or unhappiness or, just what you don't want in your life. And then once you really understand that, then you can let it go. Because I knew that intellectually up many years, but I wouldn't stop doing what I was doing. I would then just accept what I was in my life and maybe just complain about it or, turn a blind eye to it. I knew it was killing me.
Brenton, so when I asked you a question about what you learned from all the trainings and retreats that you've done, the programs, spiritual programs, also, you gave me like a whole list of those. But I don't go around and I don't meet that many people in my life that have done all of that. What was the reason behind it for you, and what caused that curiosity for finding the spiritual awakening and spiritual answers for you? Why would you do all these programs and retreats and trainings in the first place?
Well, like I said too, I just never bought into what we're taught this reality is. It's just, and now it's just beyond. Like I never bought into it. So
you always felt like, I'll just use an example, the movie Matrix, where you felt like something's wrong, something there.
Right, and then I did, for the 12. Then at one point, then I turned it off, and I started using drugs and alcohol to cope, and just turn it off and not deal. Like then, I wouldn't deal with reality of, I don't know, our political structure and all this stuff, which now I'm like, I don't need to be in that reality anyway. Thank God I was actually right about that. But no, I mean, I don't want to be right, but I was that, was fine. But anyway, yeah, so then, I became a drug addict, alcoholic up until, when did I get sober? Finally, well, it was 2006 has been my last drink, and then in 2013 I had a small little with pills, but so I've been sober since 2006, definitely from drugs and alcohol, like hard drugs and alcohol, So, yeah, so that's just, and that was also another layer of it that, at this point I feel like I came into this existence as a drug addict, alcoholic, as a safeguard, because then I knew, because, that can just be a block to anybody, alcoholic or drug addict or not, on a spiritual journey,
It's a very interesting concept that I'm hearing, that I'm witnessing here, because I've been filming episodes for season 3 this whole summer, and I have quite a few already, and every guest is different, the story is different, even though there are a lot of similarities and identities. And it's interesting because your concept of the whole spiritual journey is quite different from my other guests. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I want to go ahead and summarize your spiritual journey. So since you were a child, you felt that something's wrong, and what we're taught is not necessarily accurate, and you wouldn't call it truth. And that thinking and knowledge that you intuitively had was bothering you, because you knew that what we're taught is not what reality is. So with that discomfort of thinking, and with that perception of life, you turn to, on one hand, finding the answers in all the spiritual retreats and trainings and programs and everything that could possibly have the answer for you, what reality really is. On the other hand, you use drugs and alcohol as a way of numbing the thoughts, the discomfort of the thoughts that you had, and numbing the reality and kind of checking out of the reality to kind of help you get through this reality while you're finding the answers for it. And lo and behold, after all these years, when your health was challenged and you were not practically but figuratively speaking on a deathbed, because your physical body was half the use it was, that's when a spiritual awakening occurred, and you realize that the reality is what you're thinking of it, what you're making of it in your head. So the whole idea of the truth that is imposed on us shouldn't really bother us, because the truth is what we choose to believe and think it is, and preferably in a positive way so that we don't get sick and don't damage or hurt
that was
ourselves.
another little spiritual, well, not maybe little, but in November or December, dealing with the DMV. But no, but that showed me this, like we're talking about this reality not being truthful. We're not taught truth, right? That's what this, we designed the souls, I feel like from the source, designed this reality that it is a mind, it is, you can find truth, you have to find the truth. Like it's designed to be insane, to make you, like, you know, just finally had enough, be so fed up that you finally go within to find out what your truth is. And each person's truth can be different. You know, maybe their truth is what this reality is. I don't know.
So awareness of the truth that you choose to believe in, the awareness of reality that you choose to accept, is a reflection of a spiritual awakening for you.
Yeah, that sounded, yeah, that's good. I like that. I think if I understand it, yeah, the truth I chose to live became my spiritual awakening.
So it's awareness, it's self-awareness.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. And like I said, again, all the guests that I've been interviewing, they're very different and they have very different form of spiritual awakening. And but I keep hearing the same word from one episode to another. It's awareness. It's self-awareness. It's knowing what's around you, what's inside of you, and how you go about this. So now that you had a spiritual awakening a few months ago, and you said you've been sort of practicing it, what would your advice be for people out there who are feeling or thinking the way that you used to, who are feeling like that's not the reality that they want to be in, or they're just in conflict of the truth that is imposed on them? What would your advice be for those people who have not experienced spiritual awakening yet? What would you tell them? Or what would you tell yourself if you could travel back in time and speak with you when you were looking for the answers and questioning life?
Well, I mean, you can't really, you know, saying that, I was like, there's things I probably couldn't tell that person, because they, you know, it would ruin the journey type. You know what I mean? Now that I think about that, like, so interesting. But don't give up, you know, and just never give up. That was another thing during that whole time that really came over me clearly, because it was, you know, 25 years of chasing the carrot in New York, trying to make my, you know, big dream happen, and just running yourself ragged, you know, and, you know, being a winner, being successful. And something also led, you know, during that whole, like, victim thing was, it's not about winning. The game of life is not about winning. And these trainings would teach you it's about winning. It's not. It's about not giving up. Of course, by you don't give up, you know, you win. But and that really rang true for me, being, you know, that I always, like, I have to win, I have to win, I have to win, I have to be successful. Then there's, you know, that creates competition, that creates you're better than the next person, or that creates that, you know, to compare and despair. But I mean, that really was like, it just took off a whole burden off my shoulders, a whole weight of it's not about winning. It's about not giving up. And in the meantime, stay in the now the best that you can. Forgive, forgive, forgive is the number one thing, and that's for you. And, you know, every nook and corner, you know, just don't leave any stone unturned. That's basically what my life has been, is leaving no stone unturned in search for the truth. Because, you know, something clearly is not right in what's happening in this world. And it hasn't been, you know what I mean? And it's designed that way, so that can kind of give me, that's come to me, that can give me, and that's what I would tell someone too. that can give me a lot of, I can just let it go. Well, yeah, it makes total sense because it's just batshit crazy. And it's like, well, all right, now we're getting somewhere. And now you just push it out of your mind, and you find your truth. You double down on what you're creating and just understand all this nonsense. It's designed that way so you just don't have, so that you do get fed up. Trying to button up and mask up and blah, 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 every little thing for everybody all the time. Well, what kind of, forget it. I mean, you might as well take me out of here. And that's when I started getting, I wouldn't say I was suicidal, but before I got sick, I would go there, and I'd be like crying with my little dog and be like, oh, God, take us out of here. It's just, I can't. And I'd be like, you're creating, this is not, I'd be like, oh, I'm fine. Then fast forward a year, I was like, oh my God, you brought this on yourself. You knew it all along too. And then that whole thing about you're committed to being a sick victim. And then last month in Sedona, I got another download, which was who wants to be lied to? And how many of us really do want to know the truth about who we really are, or do, you know what I mean? How many of us live our lives knowing that we're being lied to by our parents about something, or a loved one, or someone we're married to or in a relationship with, that we don't want to know the truth? Certainly I know, Anyway, so that was huge. And I mean, I'm glad I'm doing this interview because it makes me, I should almost do this every day because it really, inspires me. Because as I get healthy again, and then it kind of can go out the window.
It's something you got to practice on a daily basis.
Yeah, you really got to have that powerful intention of enthusiasm every day for, because it beats you down with this insanity. Yeah. So that's why you get to, you can turn that around. That is always the other side of, there's the blessing of the curse. There's always the other side.
Yeah, this is, I love talking about spiritual awakening because we can talk about it for
all night,
every night, but unfortunately, gotta wrap it up and go to bed. It's getting late, but thank you so much for coming over tonight, Brenton, and I'm glad that you had a spiritual awakening of your own that made your health better and life better. And I'm glad you keep practicing it. Thank you for sharing your experiences and with us. Thank you, and have a good night.
Good night.